Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. The sun dipped low on the horizon over the small town of Maplewood, casting long shadows on the quiet street lined with quaint homes. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of damp leaves, a reminder that the seasons changed unchecked, with time seemingly oblivious to the hidden secrets beneath the surface of this close-knit community. As twilight settled in, a single street lamp flickered to life, painting the uneven pavement with a soft yellow glow. It was just another ordinary evening for most of the townsfolk. Children played tag, while adults exchanged pleasantries at the local diner. But in the farthest corner, where the quaint suburb met an isolated stretch of woods, a darkness stirred. Detective Sarah Monroe stood at the police tape that cordoned off a patch of forest, her breath visible in the chilly air. It was a scene that would haunt her, one she could never have prepared for. Beneath the fallen leaves lay a body lifeless, obscured by nature's cruel indifference. She knelt beside it, the world around her fading into nothingness. This was unlike anything she had encountered in her 10 years on the force. The victim was a young woman, barely 21, with a bright smile that now lay frozen. The circumstances surrounding her death were murky, leaving Sarah with gnawing questions. Who was she? What had led her here? As the cold wind whispered through the trees, Sarah knew this was the beginning of a case that would challenge her skills, ethics, and ultimately, her resolve. She straightened up, steeling herself. The answers lay buried not just in the ground, but in the memories of those who had known her, hidden in plain sight among the residents of Maplewood. The victim, the chilling quiet of the night, was punctuated only by the rustle of leaves as Detective Sarah Monroe returned to her car after reviewing the scene. The victim, she had learned, was named Emily Watson, a name that resonated among the locals. Sarah flicked on the headlights and decided to drive to the heart of Maplewood, where she hoped to unearth more than just a name on a gravestone. The diner was still bustling at this hour, glowing with warmth and laughter. Sarah stepped inside, her eyes scanning the crowd until they fell upon a group of young women huddled together at a booth. Their voices animated, laughter floating like a balm over the still air. She approached them, the unease in her stomach settling into the firm determination to uncover Emily's story. "Excuse me," Sarah began, her badge visible against the black fabric of her jacket. "I'm Detective Monroe. I need to ask you about your friend, Emily Watson." The laughter slipped away as eyes widened. A brunette named Kayla spoke first, her voice tremulous. "Emily? What happened to her?" Sarah felt the weight of their collective dread. "I'm afraid I have some difficult news. Emily was found dead today in the woods." The booth fell silent, shock wrapping around them like a thick fog. Kayla's hand trembled as she reached for her drink. "But she was just here." "What do you mean?" Sarah prompted gently, recognizing the fragile threads of the truth that could unravel with just a few more questions. "He was meeting a guy. She thought he was special." She didn't listen. As their stories began to unfold, a clearer picture of Emily emerged. A bright, ambitious young woman with dreams of becoming a graphic designer, known for her vivacious spirit but encumbered by shadows from her past. The more Sarah learned, the more she understood that Emily's journey in life was riddled with complexities that ran deeper than any surface impression, a maze that she had been navigating alone. Emily Watson was not merely a victim. She had been a vibrant presence, now extinguished far too soon. As the night pressed on, Sarah couldn't shake the growing urgency to untangle the circumstances that led to Emily's fate. A crime scene. The following morning brought an eerie stillness to the Maplewood woods as Detective Sarah Monroe returned to the scene where Emily Watson's life had ended. The mist curled lazily around the trees, and the morning sun struggled to penetrate the canopy above, casting an ethereal glow that underscored the tragedy. Sarah's heart ached as she navigated the damp ground, a fresh wave of determination propelling her forward. The forensic team had arrived early, meticulously collecting evidence. Bright yellow markers dotted the underbrush, highlighting items of interest: a broken necklace chain, a single red high heel that stood stark against the earthy tones of fallen leaves, and a scrap of fabric caught on a jagged branch. Each piece was a silent witness to the events that had transpired here, and Sarah couldn't help but feel the weight of their significance. As she moved closer to where Emily had been found, the air thickened with the scent of decay and damp. Photographs taken by the crime scene. Photographer captured Emily's position, the way she lay, as though nature herself had cradled her in a final embrace. The details were haunting. Her clothes were in disarray, hair tangled with debris. But what struck Sarah most was the expression on Emily's face, eerily serene despite the violence that had stolen her life. "Detective Monroe," a voice called from nearby. It was Officer Williams, her partner, holding up a notebook filled with sketches and notes. "I found something you might want to see." Sarah approached him, her eyes narrowing in focus. Williams handed her the notebook, flipping to a page filled with hasty drawings of the area. "I spoke with a few locals early this morning. They mentioned seeing someone suspicious in these woods around the time of the murder. It's a guy, tall, athletic build, often wearing a dark hoodie." Sarah's pulse quickened at the description. "Did they catch a name?" "No one seems to know him personally. Just a face that didn't fit." Williams frowned, his brow knotted in thought. "But there is one more thing: the jewelry you found. It belonged to Emily. I remembered she had a matching set with her best friend." Sarah's mind raced, the threads of Emily's life weaving tighter in her thoughts. The more she uncovered, the clearer the path became, a slight bend, but ultimately leading to answers. The crime scene was not just a clearing in the woods. It was the first chapter in a narrative, a book that was still unwritten, and she was determined to read every page. The early investigation. The soft hum of the Maplewood Police Department filled the air as Detective Sarah Monroe returned from the crime scene. The walls were adorned with photos of the town's landmarks, likely intended to foster a sense of community pride. But today, those same walls felt oppressive, reminding her of the weight on her shoulders. The case of Emily Watson deserved meticulous attention. Sarah shuffled through Emily's background, cross-referencing police reports with the local social media accounts that had brimmed with activity since the news of her death broke. Her desk sprawled with documents as she pieced together a timeline of Emily's last days, a web of friendships, romantic entanglements, and troubling shadows. "Hey, Sarah," Officer Williams called from the adjacent room, leaning in with a cup of coffee. "I've got information from the bar across the street. Emily was seen there just before she met that guy." "More on the suspicious character," Sarah replied, looking up expectantly. "Sort of," Williams replied, stepping closer. "She was with two friends, those same girls from the diner. They left together." Emily seemed excited, almost giddy. But she also left without telling her friends where she was going next. "Interesting," Sarah murmured. "We need to talk to those friends again and find out what else they might know. Any sign of the guy she was meeting?" Williams popped a muffin from a paper bag and shrugged. "Not yet, but we're looking into any cameras nearby that might have caught something. Local surveillance could help if they were in the area." The phone on Sarah's desk rang, interrupting the unfolding plans. It was the coroner with the initial findings. "Detective Monroe," he said, his voice tight. "Emily's cause of death appears to be blunt force trauma, and we found signs of struggle. The preliminary examination suggests it wasn't a random act." The knot twisted in Sarah's stomach as she absorbed his words. It was a devastating confirmation, but it grounded her. The investigation had taken a dark turn. The crushing pressure of urgency sparked within her. She needed to rally the resources in the department and ensure that those friends, those last witnesses, were questioned thoroughly. Every minute counted, and they needed to shine a light into the shadows that had consumed Emily. As the investigation ramped up, Sarah felt the determination surge within her, like a fire reigniting. The community might have been shaken, but she was hell-bent on ensuring Emily's story didn't fade away in the whispers of Maplewood. The dead ends. Days bled together as Detective Sarah Monroe immersed herself in the investigation. Fueled by caffeine and an unwavering resolve, the office buzzed with activity, but every new lead seemed to evaporate. She sat in a cramped interview room across from Kayla and her friends, their faces drawn and weary. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by an overwhelming sense of guilt hanging thick in the air. "Emily was always so trusting," Kayla said, her voice barely above a whisper. She liked him, this guy. The way she spoke about him, he seemed different. But now her words faltered, and tears pooled in her eyes. "Do you remember anything specific that stood out?" Sarah pressed gently, flipping through her notes. He was tall and had dark hair, wore this hoodie, but he didn't look dangerous. It's just she was so excited to see him. I thought it was a good thing. Sarah leaned forward, determined to catch a glimmer of hope. "You mentioned he was a regular at the bar. Did you see him often?" Ja replied, shaking her head. "Just that one night. It didn't seem like they were together long." The conversation dwindled, their memories proving frustratingly incomplete. After wrapping up the interviews, Sarah retreated to her desk, paging through the surveillance footage gathered from the bar. Each grainy clip played on a loop, people entering, laughing. But when Emily danced with her friends, there was no sign of the elusive man. Weeks trickled by, and each day felt like a step into an abyss of dead ends. Witnesses claimed to see nothing. Cameras revealed no further leads. The frustration transformed into a heavy burden on Sarah's shoulders. Maps of Maplewood, plastered with timelines, began to make her feel as if she were chasing shadows rather than unraveling the truth. What if this guy never existed? Williams suggested one afternoon as they reviewed the notes again. What if he's a ghost we're chasing? The idea hung in the air, suffocating. Emily's life was becoming a fading memory, and the weight of unanswered questions settled deep in Sarah's chest. "We can't give up," she replied firmly, resolve sparking anew. "There has to be something we're missing." With fatigue creasing her brow, Sarah knew they needed a fresh perspective. She resolved to dig deeper into Emily's past, the social media accounts to which her friends had referred the places she used to frequent, her digital footprint. If they could piece together the fragments of Emily's life, perhaps they could unravel the mysterious narrative of her last moments. All too aware that time was slipping away, she steeled her resolve for the next stage of the investigation. A break in the case. A week later, an unexpected call shattered the monotony of dead ends that had cloaked the investigation. Sarah had barely settled at her desk when her phone rang, its insistent tone slicing through her concentration. It was Officer Williams, his voice a blend of excitement and urgency. "Sarah, you need to come to the station. We've got a lead that might change everything." Her heart raced as she hurried through the narrow hallways, the scent of stale coffee and paperwork filling her senses. Once in the briefing room, she found Williams standing beside a large board filled with photographs and notes, a chaotic tapestry of Emily's life and the connections they had pieced together. "Remember that barista we spoke to weeks ago at the coffee shop where Emily worked?" Williams began. "He just came in with some information. He saw Emily the night she died." "What did he see?" Sarah leaned in closer, her pulse quickening. "He noticed her with a stranger, and they seemed a little off. He thought the guy was pushing her to leave with him." Emily looked uneasy, and he said it was a stark contrast to the way she usually carried herself. With a newfound urgency, Sarah took a seat, rapidly jotting down notes. "Did he recognize the guy?" "Not quite, but he agreed to come into the station and go through the footage. He has a good memory. Said something about a tattoo he caught a glimpse of." "Let's get him in right away," Sarah ordered, already on her feet. "If we can identify this man, we could finally break through the veil of this case." Moments later, they were ushered into an interrogation room where the barista, a nervous young man named Jason, sat awaiting them. "I didn't think you'd actually call me back," he stammered, his hands fidgeting. "What do you remember, Jason?" Sarah prompted, her tone warm but urgent. "Every detail matters." As Jason recounted the events of that fateful night, Sarah felt a spark of hope igniting. He described a tattoo on the man's forearm, a serpent entwined with vines. "He had this rough look, but I just thought he was a bad boy type. I didn't think he'd hurt her." "Did you see where they went?" Sarah pressed, a rush of adrenaline coursing through her. "I didn't catch which way they headed. I saw them leave together." Emily was hesitant. She kept looking back, like she wanted to change her mind. That single moment, that pause in Emily's choices, crackled with urgency. Sarah's mind raced through the possible pathways this detail could open. A tattoo narrowed their search significantly, and if they could match it with local records, they could finally put a name to the lurking shadow that had enveloped Emily. As Jason left, promising to return for photo lineups, Sarah shared a determined glance with Williams. It was a breakthrough they had hardly dared to hope for. The first lit path through a dense forest of uncertainty. Emily's story was inching closer to resolution, not just an investigation, but a chance to finally honor her memory. The suspect. The atmosphere in the Maplewood Police Department crackled with a sense of anticipation as Detective Sarah Monroe and Officer Williams pored over records of local tattoo parlors. They had compiled a list of potential suspects matching the serpent tattoo description Jason provided. After hours of sifting through images and files, one name stood out: Jake Harmon, a local drifter with a checkered past. "Here he is," Sarah said, tracing her finger over a blurry surveillance photo of Jake exiting a nearby bar a week before Emily's death. "Look at that tattoo. It fits the description perfectly." Williams nodded, glancing over their find, "And it seems he has previous charges, assaults, some drug-related offenses. He's certainly not someone who should be around a young woman like Emily." "What's even more troubling," Sarah continued, scanning the records, "is that he was hanging around the coffee shop a lot recently. We need to learn more about his move." Without wasting time, they reached out to local informants and soon secured tips that led them straight to Jake's whereabouts. It didn't take long to track him down at an old, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, where rumors suggested he'd been living. Its crumbling walls climbed high against an overcast sky, a grim metaphor for the secrets it harbored. As Sarah and Williams approached, the air grew thick with tension and uncertainty. They had both spent hours collecting evidence and assembling pieces of Emily's last hours. But now the reality of confronting a suspect made Sarah's heart race. "Let me take the lead," Sarah whispered, always conscious of preserving the delicate balance between investigation and safety. They stepped inside the warehouse, the stale air heavy with neglect. It was dimly lit, shadows dancing eerily as they navigated the debris underfoot. And there he was. Jake sat in the corner on a makeshift cot, the remnants of his life discarded around him. His eyes flickered with apprehension as he registered their presence. "Jake Harmon?" Sarah stated, her voice steady. "We need to talk." He looked up slowly, a smirk playing on his lips. "Aren't you a little lost? This is no place for an officer." "Actually, it's exactly where we need to be," she replied, her gaze locked on him. "We want to ask you about Emily Watson." At the mention of her name, Jake's demeanor shifted. The smirk vanished, replaced by a flicker of something darker, more menacing. "I don't know anything about her. Witnesses placed you with her the night she died," Williams interjected, stepping closer. "We have enough to bring you in, but it'd be better for you if you just told us what happened." Jake stood abruptly, adrenaline coursing through the dim space. "No, you can't pin anything on me. I was just moving on, man." "Then why did your name come up with a witness?" Sarah pressed, feeling a surge. She could sense the tension coiling around them, every word heavy with implications. Jake's expression hardened further, the bravado fading into an unsettling stillness. The silence that followed hung thick, suffocating, as Sarah's heart hammered in tune with the chase. They were on the cusp of something significant. With every moment spent in this confrontation, the threads of truth so fragile yet tenacious seemed to pull tighter. It was a risky dance, and yet it felt like the undeniable point where the case might finally take a turn. As they prepared to capture everything in his eyes, a moment of clarity or deception, Sarah could feel they were teetering on the edge of unraveling Emily's story. The trial. The courtroom was crowded. the air thick with both anticipation and tension. Bright sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating the faces of the spectators' friends, family, and well-wishers of Emily Watson, all eager for justice. Detective Sarah Monroe sat in the front row, her heart heavy, but filled with resolve. This was the moment they had been working toward, the culmination of countless hours investigating and piecing together the puzzle that was Emily's last moments. Jake Harmon, the accused, sat at the front, his previously boisterous demeanor now subdued beneath the weight of the legal proceedings. He appeared disheveled, a stark contrast to the confidence he had exuded during their earlier confrontation. Sarah observed him closely, determined to be a steadfast presence as the trial unfolded. The prosecutor opened with a firm assertion, detailing Emily's last known movements, emphasizing the witness testimonies, including that of Jason, the coffee shop barista who had seen her leave with Jake. Evidence, meticulously gathered by Sarah and her team, painted a chilling picture of the events leading to Emily's tragic end. "We will show that the defendant lured Emily to a remote location under false pretenses," the prosecutor declared, locking eyes with Jake as he spoke. "And in that secluded corner of Maplewood, he brutally took her life." The defense attorney countered with fierce vigor, questioning the reliability of the witnesses and suggesting that Emily had perhaps met Jake by choice. "A moment of poor judgment does not equate to murder," he argued, his tone dripping with disdain for the emotional weight of the case. A knot tightened in Sarah's stomach as the narrative twisted. It was a trajectory they had anticipated. They needed to shift the focus back to the facts, to the evidence that could not be denied. As the trial progressed, Emily's friends took the stand, recounting their memories of her vibrant spirit, her hopes, and her fears. Their testimonies offered a heartfelt glimpse of the young woman they had lost, and the audience felt the weight of their loss. Each story contributed a thread in the tapestry of Emily's life, illustrating the stark contrast to the accusations hurled against her memory. Then came Jason's testimony. He spoke of the evening he encountered Jake. Sarah's heart pounded as he described Jake's threatening presence, the way Emily had hesitated and looked back as if seeking help. The room fell quiet, the gravity of Jason's words hanging heavily. "Emily was afraid," Jason concluded, emotion cracking his voice. "She wanted to stay with us. She shouldn't have left with him." All eyes turned to the jury, their expressions a mix of compassion and contemplation. Sarah could feel the air shift as the prosecutor delivered the closing argument, weaving through the evidence like a masterful storyteller. "This is about the truth that Emily can no longer tell. Her life was cut short by someone who preyed on her kindness and trust." Finally, the defense rebutted, but doubts whispered through the crowd as the case for the prosecution lingered heavy in the air. When the verdict came, Sarah held her breath, every heartbeat echoing with the hopes of those who had loved Emily. As the foreman of the jury stood, the courtroom hushed to a pin-drop silence, guilty of second-degree murder. The words fell like a thunderclap, reverberating through every heart in the room. Relief flooded Sarah, mingling with grief. Justice for Emily had been served, though it could never replace what was lost. As the gavel struck, she exchanged glances with Emily's friends, their tear-streaked faces lighting up with the knowledge that her story would continue to resonate. In that moment, hope flickered amidst despair, and they knew that Emily's memory would endure, etched forever in the hearts of those she had touched. The aftermath. The days after the trial passed in a surreal haze for Detective Sarah Monroe. While the verdict had granted a semblance of justice for Emily, it was overshadowed by the heavy burden of loss that clung to the community like an unshakable shroud. Maplewood was quieter, its streets still echoing with the unresolved pain of unraveling happier memories. Disturbed by tragedy, Sarah watched as candlelight vigils commemorated Emily's life. Locals gathering to share stories of laughter and warmth. Muffled tears were cast into the autumn air, while flowers adorned the tree near the coffee shop where Emily used to spend her afternoons sketching. The sight flooded Sarah with a profound sense of unity and sorrow, shared grief that transcended individual stories. As she stepped into the diner one morning, she noticed inside the booth where Emily had once sat, now surrounded by candles and photographs. Kayla and Rachel were there, candles flickering softly before them. "Detective Monroe," Kayla said, her voice quaking slightly. "Thank you for what you did for Emily." "It was a team effort," Sarah replied, sincerity rooting her words. "She deserved every bit of it." "But it doesn't bring her back," Rachel added, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "We're all changed because of this." "Oh." Sarah nodded, the weight of their trauma alive in the air around them. "Grief doesn't have a timeline. It's okay to feel lost. You aren't alone in this." As the weeks turned into months, Sarah found herself grappling with the aftermath of the Case shadows looming large. Even as she moved on to other investigations, the intricacies of Emily's case lingered like a haunting refrain. There were dreams unfinished and futures undiscovered. In an effort to channel her own grief, she volunteered at the local community center, providing counseling for those affected by violence. Each story intertwined with Emily's, an echo of pain transformed into resilience. One drizzly afternoon, Sarah found herself attending a community meeting focused on safety and awareness, where she was asked to share insights. Emily's story highlighted a crucial need for vigilance and kindness, she remarked, her voice steady yet solemn. "If there's one thing I learned, it's that trust is a double-edged sword. Listen to your instinct." As she spoke, she felt a sense of purpose fire through her. And when the public affirmed her words with applause and shared experiences, she sensed that hope could sprout even amidst the harshest of truths. The season slowly turned again frost, creeping through the light of another winter. But the warmth of Emily's memory grew ever stronger in the hearts of those who cherished. The town planted a sapling, a living tribute to the girl whose laughter once danced through its streets, now a reminder of their collective promise to protect and strengthen their community. As Sarah looked at the young tree standing tall amid the bleakness of winter, she felt embers of resilience igniting. Though Emily was gone from this world, her spirit was forever etched in Maplewood, serving as a guiding light, a lasting lesson in compassion and remembrance. Always urging them to nurture love over fear in every heart. For Sarah, the journey had set her on a path, an irrevocable bond with empathy that transcended the roles of detective and community member. Emily's story had ignited the flame of vigilance and heart, propelling her toward a deeper understanding of life and the unending work of protecting it. Reflection. As the first thaw of spring crept into Maplewood, Detective Sarah Monroe found herself standing near the small tree, planted in Emily's honor. The tender buds began to bloom, a vivid contrast to the starkness of winter they had endured. It was a poignant reminder of life's cyclical nature, a juxtaposition of loss and rebirth. With each passing week, Sarah had reflected deeply on the complexities of human connection, trust, and tragedy. Emily's case had stirred more than just the immediate emotions of anguish. It had compelled her to confront the broader implications of vulnerability. The reality was that every life lost echoed beyond its own, rippling into the lives of friends, family, and an entire community. She recalled the emotions of the tragically tremors that shook her as testimony unfolded, revealing the fragility of youth and the depths of fear Each moment had felt heavy, sculpting a trench around her heart that had once run shallow. Yet here she stood, compelled by the resilience of those who had done the hard work of healing and remembrance. As Sarah contemplated what lay ahead, she felt a surge of commitment swell within her. She would dedicate herself to advocating for those silenced by violence, honoring Emily not just through memories, but through action. She wanted to inspire others to recognize the importance of vigilance, the value of community, and the power that comes from remembering the lost. With a promise whispered into the gentle spring breeze, Sarah leaned against the tree, grateful for the way life continued to unfurl despite darkness. She could already feel Emily's spirit encouraging them all to nurture the bonds between them, to stand firm in the face of uncertainty, and above all, to ensure that voices would never again be silent.